Thank you, Heavenly Father. We come before you this afternoon on such a beautiful day and just entreat your blessing and your favor, God, and your wisdom. Lord, the author of the New Testament letter, James, writes that we could ask wisdom from you and you would give it liberally and without reproach. And so, Lord, we ask wisdom on these chamber meetings today, Lord, and all that's discussed and all that's said. Lord, we pray for those that we have entrusted the city government, Lord, that you would just bless them today with your favor. Let them be reminded, Lord, of what the Apostle Paul tells those Philippians in the New Testament, to not to do anything out of selfish ambition or vain deceit, but Lord, let us strive for unity and cooperation and togetherness to propel this city forward. Lord, our city and our region and state needs much needed rain. And Lord, we pray that you would bless our land, just like in 1 Kings 18 with the prophet Elijah. Lord, you'd send a little rain cloud that brings a terrific rainstorm and heal our land. Lord, bless our mayor and our city council members and city manager and all the managers and heads of the departments of this city and their families and their employees. Protect them, watch over them, help them as well. Lord, bless those who are in public service, those that put their lives on the line day in and day out for the goodwill of our citizenry in this community. Lord, we entreat you and call upon your name, Jesus. Help us, Lord, we pray. In your name, Jesus. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor. And the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag and to the Texas state flag will be led by Isaiah De Leon. He's a 12th grader at Richard King High School. He placed second in state for the UIL 5A wrestling meet.
All right. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in honoring the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Isaiah, and good luck in your studies and wrestling. Ms. Huerta, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Council members Roland Barrera.
Here.
Sylvia Campos. Eric Cantu. Here. Gil Hernandez.
Here.
Kaylin Paxson.
Here.
Everett Roy.
Here.
Mark Scott.
Here.
Carolyn Vaughn. Here. City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Present.
City Attorney Miles Risley. Here. Mayor and Council, a quorum of the Council and the required charter officers are present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. And this morning, I don't believe, Mr. Zanoni, you don't have any report, correct?
Yeah, no city manager's report. We had planned on doing another item, but in lieu of that, we're going to do the intergovernmental relations presentation.
And do we have Ryan on the online, Ms. Huerta?
I'm here.
Mr. Skorbarczyk? There he is.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you. If you'll go ahead and present, and we will hold our questions to the end.
Perfect. Let me know if y'all can see the presentation, so I'll know when to begin.
We can.
Perfect. Okay. So if we can go to slide 2, what I'd like to start with is just a reminder of where we are in the legislative process and some of the important deadlines that will be coming up, primarily that of March 14th. In several weeks, the last day to file legislation in this session will be upon the House and the Senate, and that is also the date by which the legislature can start considering in full chamber votes non-emergency items that were not designated policy areas by the governor in his State of the State address. So at that time, obviously, we'll know the final bill count. In addition, we will also start to see a lot of the legislation pick up steam and committees meeting in earnest as they're able to consider everything that's under their jurisdiction, as long as those bills are referred at a pace in which it allows them to take those up. If we go to slide 3, there were announcements that were made late last week that have already impacted some of the work the legislature is doing this week. House Appropriations named its subcommittees, and both of our representatives from the Corpus Christi delegation on the House Appropriations Committee were designated to subcommittees. I know council members are busy, and there's probably times at which you wish you could clone yourself to be in two places at once, and that's certainly going to be the case for Representative Villalobos. She was appointed to two subcommittees of the Appropriations Committee. And this is where a lot of the bulk of the work that is done on the House budget will happen. And so the two subcommittees meet on the same day at the same time. And so members, and she's not the only representative in this situation, members appointed to multiple subcommittees like this will have to balance and jump between each committee as they're hearing certain topics. So the subcommittees Representative Villalobos was appointed to are General Government, Judiciary and Public Safety, and Criminal Justice, as well as Natural Resources, Business and Economic Development, and Regulatory. And then Representative J.M. Lozano was appointed a subcommittee Article 2, which is Health and Human Services, one of the larger articles as a standalone article in the budget. On slide 4, just a recap of the ongoings of this week. Since I updated council last week, there hasn't been too much in the way of substantive committee meetings scheduled for this week. Senate Water and Agriculture and Rural Affairs and Senate State Affairs have met with some initial bills, mainly agreed to minor bills, but they're still substantive as the committees are fully getting underway this week. You'll recall the Senate has had their committees appointed for some time now, and so it's no surprise that House committees are just now meeting and will conduct their organizational meetings, which are typically the first meeting of the committee in which they'll take invited testimony from state agencies on relevant subject matter. And in the House, they're typically invited testimony only. So we'll see several of those this week and into the weeks ahead. On the next slide, Senate Health and Human Services will also be meeting this week on several topics, and then Senate Natural Resources and Senate Border will actually also be conducting their organizational hearings. Not too much on the initial agendas for these committees that would impact directly the city of Corpus Christi or municipalities in general. We're monitoring a few of the bills that were up just for future compliance if they were to go into law and make sure that we can implement those. But there are a tremendous amount of bills that continue to be filed each day. And so as those get referred, we'll look forward to covering those. In terms of what the House Appropriations Subcommittees are hearing testimony on this week, the Officer of the Governor, where DAG funding can be found, is there. The folks who participated in the CB to ATX Day will remember that being a primary talking point for the overall community. I think everyone in Corpus Christi recognizes the importance of that particular fund and the reality of our success as a community in leveraging state dollars to support the military in Corpus Christi. Our hope is to see increased funding there. So that's an opening conversation that the subcommittee has had. Transportation and a few other agencies which have general oversight over programs which the municipalities have programs which we participate in. On the next slide, additional subcommittee testimony will be delivered primarily in the Regulatory and Natural Resources section of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and the Water Development Board. And in addition, we should mention that junior colleges in A&M Corpus Christi will be presenting their legislative appropriations requests. And so these are largely the introductory hearings where agencies will lay out what is called an LAR or legislative appropriations request, identifying their top funding priorities for the state, identifying how many FTEs, if any, that they're requesting to add to perform the functions they're required to by the state. And so from there, the subcommittees will dive into some more specific testimony as they make determinations on what funding levels end up being for these agencies. And if we go to the last slide, in terms of forecast for the next 2 weeks, in which I expect we'll be presenting again to council after the filing deadline, what we do expect, looking into the crystal ball for the legislature All committees will probably have conducted an organizational hearing. They're not required to, but it is a typical function of the chair in the case, especially where there are new members to the committee, to have the opportunity to hear from agencies which they have oversight and hear out what issues they've identified that might be of state policy importance. The House and Senate committees at that point will start, they will continue advancing the governor's emergency items. There's a number of bills in that category that have yet to be filed. And so we're still waiting for some of the most consequential ones, primarily the major bills around water, to be filed. On March 14th, as that deadline passes, as I stated earlier, we'll see how many bills have been filed this session. As of Friday, we had 4,765 bills filed. For those following along, that is a portal that has opened, and House and Senate members have been able to file those bills since November. Municipalities are generally tracking around a little over 1,000 bills. I sent an updated bill track to Mayor and Council this morning, right before we started this meeting, so that you can have an awareness of where we are. And if you have questions on those, please don't hesitate to reach out. For perspective's sake, we do expect in the next 3 weeks at least another 4,000 bills to be filed. So the pace in which the legislation is going to be introduced will pick up dramatically, as will our responsibility to make sure we're capturing those on our tracking report and working with department heads to gain feedback. It's important to note, just because a bill is introduced, it doesn't mean it's immediately getting a hearing. There's a procedural step in between in which the presider of the chamber, which would be the lieutenant governor in the Senate's case, and the speaker in the House's case, has to refer that to committee before it can be heard. And so we'll have a little bit of breathing room from a bill being introduced, being referred, and being set for a hearing, where we hope to be engaging House and Senate authors on legislation that will most acutely impact municipalities. And with that, Mayor, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ryan. Do we have any questions or comments, council members? Doesn't look like we do, Ryan. Thank you so much, and we appreciate you updating us, through memos and such. It's very useful, and we look forward to the next briefing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Peter, nothing else?
That's it. Yeah, you can move on to citizen comment.
Okay, great. Well, we have 10 minutes before we hit the noon hour, but we're going to go ahead and start public comment now. Okay, so as we proceed to item F, public comment, I'd like to take a moment to emphasize the importance of this business meeting. We handle significant matters concerning taxpayer dollars, making it imperative that we uphold the highest standards of decorum and adherence to our policies. Our core principles of openness, transparency, and inclusiveness guide our actions, and we aim to achieve them while respecting our City Council policy, which has been in place for 30 years. Public comment serves as one avenue for communication, but it is not the sole method. You can also reach out to your council members excuse me, by way of phone calls, emails, or even by scheduling an in-person appointment. With that said, let's proceed to public comment, keeping in mind the importance of decorum and adherence to this policy. And before we begin, I'd like to ask our City Attorney, Miles Risley, to review the council meeting rules of decorum.
All citizens must be courteous, polite, and respectful of one another, including the City Council and city staff. The mayor and council members shall be referred to by title and/or title surname. All remarks must be addressed to the mayor and city council and not to the council members as individuals. Citizens are only permitted to speak on city-related subject matter. Speaking on any non-city related matter is prohibited. Loud, boisterous, profane, or obscene language or behavior is not allowed. Citizens must refrain from any disturbing noise, demonstration, or other act disrupting to the city council business.
Thank you, Mr. Risley. Individuals will be called upon in the order they signed up electronically. We will first hear in-person comments, followed by virtual public comments. Residents of Corpus Christi will be given priority over non-residents. Please state your name and city in which you live before beginning your comments. You do have 2 opportunities to make public comment on an agenda item or city-related business. First is at this time, and second is at the actual time we hear the agenda item. So please select one option. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes, while non-resident comments are limited to 1 minute. And there will be a visible timer positioned near the city secretary's desk, which will assist in managing the allotted time. If you have a petition or any relevant information that you'd like to hand to us before speaking, please present it to the city secretary and she will hand it to us. So with that, we'll start with Mr. Bruce Goulet. There you go.
I did not. I was just
Islander blue. Thank you.
It happened that way. So.
Did I pronounce your name the right way?
You did. Hello, my name is Bruce Goulet. I live here in Corpus Christi in District 3, and I want to thank the City Council and for allowing LIFT to administer the grant money for the businesses like myself and other businesses that are suffering from this drought. I want to tell the City Council thank you for what you're doing to help us. Suffering, you know, the drought from stage 3, my concerns are that my business is, you know, landscape design and installation, grading and sodding, etc. And we've suffered extensively from it. The last 3 months, my phone hasn't rang, and normally by now I would be scheduling people 3 to 4 months out to get their jobs done. So anyway, we've given builders options like rock landscaping and artificial turf and other things, but you know the cost of that is 2, 3 to 10 times more than what normal sodding and putting in a tree is. So the problem is that they're not going to pass that cost on to the house. They're just not going to do it. So that's not helping me either. But you know, the grant money is going to help probably for the next 3 months. So my question is, how are we going to solve the water problem 3 months, 4 months from now? What's going to happen if we have to go to stage 4 water restrictions, and how that's going to affect these builders and getting permits to build houses? And that slows the process down for me to get to that point where I'm going to sod or grade it and do the job that I do. So I'm hoping that y'all have a plan to solve this problem. You know, today's Taco Tuesday. At my business, I bring tacos in for my guys. I normally bring in 15 tacos. Today I brought in 5. It makes it hard. So I just want to, again, say thank you. Hope that my business qualifies for one of these grants, and keep doing the good work that y'all are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goulet. Susie Saldana.
Susie Luna Saldana, District 2. First of all, I too want to say thank you to the people that stood up with the citizens of Corpus Christi and kept the audience participation the way it is. I have a tremendous problem when someone tells us that you guys handle important business, streets, water, those kind of things. You do, but everything you handle affects us. We, the citizens of Corpus Christi. It affects us, so therefore, you should be able to listen to our input. I had problems with people that offered amendments, that tried to cut it, because that shows that you're not interested. If you didn't want to hear from the people, this council didn't want to hear from the people, why did you run? Why did you run to be elected? That is my question
Mayor,
to each and every one of you.
Excuse me.
Questions of council or staff are inappropriate.
Oh, Ms. Saldana, you can't ask questions.
Okay. No question. My statement is, you all should not be the ones to decide whether people get hurt or not. This is a right of the people to speak. And in other subjects, I want to make sure that you understand that we need water. I don't care how you get it. Dig a well, dig 2 wells, do desalination, whatever you have to do. But if you do not get us water, we will die. This city will fold up and die. And you're sitting in those chairs to make sure that we, the people, get what we need. You're not up there for your own good. You're not up there to have a little bit of time for you to be able to. If you only wanted to devote a certain amount of time to this council, you shouldn't have run. That's what I have to say. And on a third note, you've got to remember that one of the things I've done is contact the Secretary of State, and you cannot have conversations with each other, even if you bend over to whisper to somebody else, because that is a violation. This is a public meeting, and anything you say while you're in public should be shared with us. So if you lean over to one of your other council members and say, "This is ridiculous, we're having to be here," that should be public. This is a public meeting, and you're here to serve we the people. We're not here to serve you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Aldana. Councilman Hernandez, did you have a...
Yes, real quick question. Miles, can you refer, when you say asking questions, does that include rhetorical questions?
The questions of council or staff are inappropriate. Rhetorical questions would be included within that gambit.
Okay, because I don't think she was expecting an answer. I think she was kind of like an open question, not necessarily expecting us to answer her right then and there. I would venture to say the rhetorical question is part of speech and would not be included in that, but we can probably address that separately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. John Weber.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. John Weber of Corpus Christi. I am thankful for the council members who have brought forward the idea for an alternative water supply workshop. I think it is a great idea to explore all options. May the council choose the ones that can meet our needs as far as being timely and not to be a burden of ratepayers or taxpayers with massive amounts of debt. I am glad a presentation will be done regarding placing floating solar on portions of Lake Corpus Christi and other water retention ponds the city owns. I'm not suggesting the city be the owner and operator of this electrical generation source. I am suggesting the city lease a portion, less than 10% of the reservoir, to a developer that would own and operate the power plant. This would bring in annual revenues for the city water department. It appears the city would be the leaseor for Lake Corpus Christi and other city-owned retention ponds. The Lake Corpus Christi was designed and built to be a water source for the city. That was the original and primary reason for its existence. By shading portions of the reservoir, the evaporation will fall, providing us with millions of gallons of water a day that would otherwise have gone up into the air. A 2025 published peer-reviewed research paper states, overall, we found that the presence of floating solar strongly decreased annual water temperatures, 1.2 degrees Celsius on average. The reduction in water temperature induced by floating solar increased significantly with air temperature and differed between seasons, with stronger reductions up to 3 degrees Celsius observed during the warmest days of the year in spring and summer. In addition, the reduction in water temperature also occurred in other areas of the lakes that were not covered by floating solar. That means you don't have to cover the whole reservoir to reduce the water temperature and evaporation rate for the reservoir. Just by covering a portion, you could impact the whole reservoir. The only thing better than a new water supply is one that pays you or is free. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. And just so you know, Mr. Weber, we've sent that over to, I just wanted you to know, we sent that over to Drew Molly for him to
review. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Cheryl Segrist. Is Cheryl Segrist with us today? Okay. Ryan Zeller. Ryan, oh, there you are.
Hello, my name is Ryan Zeller and I live at 301 Catalina Place. I'm here today to propose a landfill reclamation project for a closed city landfill adjacent to the J.C. Elliott transfer station located at 7001 Ayers. This project would beautify a retired city landfill into an outdoor recreational park consisting of green spaces, bike trails, walking trails, streams, gathering areas, nature parks, as well as an energy site. According to a measurement obtained from Google Maps, this could provide approximately 150 to 200 acre outdoor recreational area to the citizens of Corpus Christi. The cost to transform a landfill into a recreational area ranges from $1 to $100 million. Some of these costs are dependent on the size of the site, land acquisition, amount of site remediation required to trap waste gases and prevent leachate from contaminating water sources and amenities. This land is already owned by the city of Corpus Christi. In 1991, the EPA developed stringent guidelines such as capping, control of methane gas production, and odor mitigation. This is a large expense when budgeting for landfill reclamation. Fortunately, with the city landfill closing around 2007, it appears this large expense has already been incurred in accordance with EPA guidelines and evidence of methane gas meters located throughout the landfill, therefore drastically decreasing the overall cost of this project. Additionally, working with TCEQ is necessary for this project as they have guidelines that must be followed to reduce and manage penetrations to this cap. Funding for this project can come from city funds, tax dollars, federal and state grants, as well as corporate industrial sponsorships. Additionally, methane gas production can be converted and sold as electricity. Since irrigation and landscaping companies will be experiencing a slowdown as water restrictions increase, instead of giving these companies the proposed $50,000, the city can hire multiple companies to construct this recreational area and more companies as needed. The vegetation in this recreational area can consist of low maintenance, drought tolerant, native plants, wildflowers, and trees. I understand we're currently in stage 3 water restrictions, so you might think that watering would be counterintuitive, but the Greenwood wastewater treatment plant is about a half mile to the northeast of the landfill, where effluent water can be piped to the new recreational area to water the vegetation. Breaking this reclamation project up into multiple phases would be the most feasible and economical approach to bringing a green, sustainable outdoor recreational area to the citizens of Corpus Christi and surrounding area. As a citizen of the city, I'd be more than happy to be on a committee to help bring this recreational park to fruition. I had some PowerPoint slides to show some pictures I found online, but I missed the 24-hour deadline, so I can always email them. But
yeah, I was going to say you can send them by email.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Zeller. Brandon Garris.
Do y'all have the media ready to play? Brandon Garris, Corpus Christi, District 4. I submitted a video.
This is the atmospheric water generator. With this system, we're maximizing every drop of water that we can that would normally be lost to the atmosphere. So we're putting it back to use to cool these buildings and to save as much water as we can for our community. What it's doing right now is it's taking the effluent plume off of the cooling tower exhaust. So all of that water that's being sucked out of the cooling tower right now, it's actually taking that moist air, sucking it back into a condenser coil and creating water from it. Just like when you get a Starbucks cup and it starts to condense in your hand with lots of ice, that's what's happening right now. We're then taking that water and we're putting it right back in to make up water for the cooling tower, making it more efficient, making it use less water. This is a research project right now, so nobody else, as far as we know, is doing this, so we're capturing a lot of data, answering some research questions, and determining the feasibility of, can we do this all throughout the valley with our existing cooling towers? Right now we're at the MGM Grand, so MGM is a huge partner. Las Vegas Grand Prix, Formula One, their commitment is to be net zero on watering and washing their track. So this system is designed to recapture that water that would have been lost consumptively to washing their track. And then of course Water Start, a nonprofit, helped to fund this and to connect MGM, SNWA, F1 to WaterGen to get a system like this that can produce up to 1,600 gallons per day of fresh water. Because this is the first time this has ever been done, we didn't know if at this scale we would be able to generate the amount of water that we've been able to. So we ran this unit for 34 days back in November to December during race week for Formula One. And during that time, we were able to generate over 20,000 gallons during the cool weather. Warmer weather should generate a lot more than that. Warm air holds more moisture. So we're expecting now that this is turned on for the warm season to be able to generate as much as we did back in November or even more, which means this system is going to perform or outperform our expectations. Long term, we hope that systems like these can recapture some of our water that's lost to the atmosphere from these cooling towers, and we can make our cooling towers more efficient and consumptively use less water in systems like these.
Thank you. This was a follow-up from last week's I have 30 seconds, right?
You do.
This is a follow-up from last week's HVAC conversation. Phase 1 was with the cooling towers, and this is something that could be integrated later on whenever y'all develop the funding for stage 2. For the water capture, for the dehumidifiers, this is a way to maximize that water collection to every last drop and even more. And this was an example off of a 1,000-ton unit at the MGM Grand, so this is equivalent to what we could do here at the American Bank Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karras. Isabella Ariza.
Hey, Isabel Ariza, District 2 resident, co-founder of For the Greater Good. While I'm grateful that the efforts to stifle our First Amendment rights were defeated, I am appalled that we had to fight for them. But I know I shouldn't be surprised. Let's face it, greedy, insatiable, water-guzzling corporations won in this last local election. According to TransparencyUSA.org, a group that analyzes campaign finance data at the state level, they reported that the Coastal Bend Coalition spent $719,083 on this year's elections. The Coastal Bend Coalition endorsed 8 local candidates, 4 of which were elected to this council: Mark Scott, Roland Barrera, Carolyn Vaughn, and Everett Roy. And who funded the Coastal Bend Coalition? I've brought a small list of their donors. Valero Services gave $50,000. ExxonMobil gave the coalition $25,000. Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, owned by Exxon and the Saudis, also gave $25,000. Koch Industries, which owns Flint Hills, gave $25,000. Cheniere donated $25,000. Lyondell gave $10,000 to the coalition.
Mayor.
And you know who donated to Texas Chemical Council? So, Texas Chemical Council.
Ms. Ariza, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Mr. Miles, yes?
There's no profanity during the presentation.
Oh. Thank you, Miles.
Go ahead.
And the Texas Chemical Council donated $50,000. And you know who donated to the Texas Chemical Council? Celanese Pax donated $55,000. Lyondell donated $17,500 to the Chemical Council. There's so much more to that, but I don't have the time to speak on it today. So am I surprised you don't want to hear from those who care about the people and the environment? No. Am I surprised that the city manager calls people who care about other people and the environment anti-everythings? No. Am I surprised that you aren't ending the drought exemption for high-volume water users? No. Am I surprised that as the water levels in our reservoirs are drying up for small towns in the surrounding area, you won't tell industry to curtail like the rest of us? No. Am I surprised that even as the news reports that our lake levels can dry up by next year, you will refuse to end the high-volume water users drought exemption? No. Am I surprised that you're willing to spend $757 million to build an experimental desal plant for industry and you expect residents to pay for it? No. I'm not surprised because the Coastal Bend Coalition spent over $719,000 on this last election, and the mayor raised almost $200,000 to win her seat. There's a lot of special interest in those campaign finance reports. There's a lot at stake for your donors and endorsers. I can see why you want to stifle our First Amendment rights. I just wanted to let you know that regardless of what you choose to do regarding public comment, and regardless of what your big donors and endorsers want, we will continue to fight for our community, for our environment. We won't quit fighting because we are for the greater good.
Thank you, Ms. Ariza. And that concludes our in-person public comment. I think we have 2, one on WebEx and one on video. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I understand Ms. Bergstrom is not online, so Adam Rios would be next.
Great.
Mr. Rios, you ready to make your comment?
Because we are for the greater good. Thank you, Mr. Nessa.
We can hear.
Concludes our
Mr. Rios?
our in-person public comment. I think we have two on WebEx.
I didn't know if he had his
line. So Adam Rios is next.
Yeah, I think he's listening at home.
Mr. Rios, you ready to make
That's it's an echo.
Yes.
Adam, are you ready?
Make sure you can hear me.
Can you turn off?
I'm not used to doing this way. Adam Rios.
Okay, and turn off your. We can hear that you're listening in.
I'm here. Hang on 1 second. I got to lower the volume.
Yes, turn that off. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm here.
No worries. Go ahead.
Adam Rios, Corpus Christi. Just wanted to let people know that I got some emails and some questions about a contest that was supposed to happen this last weekend. If you went on the city site, you would have seen that unfortunately the contest that we were anticipating to have got postponed due to the weather that we had. But it has been rescheduled. So stay tuned for another time with that. Just want to keep encouraging people to follow along with us. I also wanted to reach out to anybody within the city really who would like to be serious about something that I have started, which is a movement to get either Velocity Games back or hopefully X Games here to Corpus Christi. I know it seems like a big challenge, but 2 years ago I went in front of City Council and talked about Venice City in California, which is a city that is about Corpus' size, if not smaller. And they turned a $250,000 investment at their fairgrounds into a net amount of about $45 million over a 3-day period. I think we have just as enough to offer, if not more than they do, to attract something like X Games to come by. I was on the news the other day and I talked about our emerging BMX scene, the very established skateboard scene that we have here. Mayor Guajardo, you met with the Surf Rider Foundation. I'm sure Cliff and everybody at the TGSA could probably speak to you on maybe tying a surf competition at the same time, maybe bring back the U.S. Open at the same time. It seems like a big challenge, but I mean, Corpus hosted the U.S. Open so many years in a row, and it seemed to do really well for the city. And that's all I'm trying to do is create a movement and work with whoever wants to work with me or together to get an event like X Games down here or bring back Velocity Games. Outside of that, again, I mainly was here to let people know that the event has just been postponed. It has not been canceled. So stay tuned. Talk with me. Call City Parks and Rec. We're getting closer to an actual date of having it. Outside of that, just wishing everybody well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rios. Mayor, that concludes the public comment period.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. So we'll move on to item G, which is our board and committee appointments.
Yes, ma'am. The first board for consideration is the Committee for Persons with Disabilities. There are 6 vacancies. The committee is recommending the reappointments of Michelle Jones and Sandra Flores, and their attendance rates are in your packets. Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The motion carries.
The committee also recommends the new appointments of Crystal Aguilar, Alejandro Benavides, Oscar Camacho, and Wilson Goodrich.
I move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The motion carries.
Next is the Downtown Management District. There's 1 vacancy representing the category of agent, employee, or tenant. Per the Texas Local Government Code, succeeding directors are chosen through the recommendation of the DMD Board of Directors and the approval of the City Council. The DMD is recommending the new appointment of Michael Islava.
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The motion carries.
Next is the Senior Corps Advisory Committee. There are 2 vacancies representing the categories of 1 SCP volunteer and 1 RSVP volunteer station. Kathleen Jocelyn is the SCP volunteer representative, and she is seeking reappointment, and her attendance rate is in your packet. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second to reappoint. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The motion carries.
And that leaves one position open for RSVP volunteer station, representing that category.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open nominations.
Mayor, I nominate Santos Huerta.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay, yeah, he is the only applicant.
Yeah, yes, ma'am,
So,
it is.
we have a motion. Do we have a second for Mr. Huerta? We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The motion carries.
So Huerta's appointed.
Yes.
And then that leaves us with the Sister City Committee. There are 2 vacancies.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open nominations. Do we have any nominations?
Okay, Robert Voorhees.
And just to note, both of these, we have a District 2 and District 3. The resignations come from those 2 districts.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Robert Voorhees. Any other nominations?
Avalos.
Avalos, okay. Any other nominations? Okay, we'll close nominations. Romero?
And Romero, okay.
Okay, we'll add Angelita Romero. And we will close nominations again.
Okay.
And
Thank
so
you.
we'll go ahead and, you want to do?
Yes, ma'am, we'll vote for 2. And you want to start with Ms. Vaughn?
I'll start with, Councilwoman Vaughn.
Okay. Voorhees?
Voorhees.
Okay, and you can do one more if you like. Okay, Avalos. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Hernandez? Ms. Campos?
Avalos and Romero.
Voorhees and Voorhees.
Voorhees.
You get
Voorhees.
Voorhees.
Avalos and Romero.
Avalos and Voorhees.
Voorhees and Avalos.
Voorhees, Avalos. Avalos. Romero.
Okay, so Avalos and Voorhees are appointed. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you. Okay, that'll take us to our consent agenda. Does anyone on the council, would anyone on the council like to pull any item 3 through 13 for individual consideration? 8. Item number 8, Councilman?
6.
Okay.
8 and 9.
9, we've got 8 already. Anything else? We have items 6, 8, and 9 so far. Okay, anyone from the public? Would anyone in the public like to pull any item to hear? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda with the exception of items 6, 8, and 9.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no.
Do you want to use the machine or no? You just no. Okay.
The motion carries. The first item pulled was item number 6. Who pulled that one?
I did.
Okay, Councilwoman Paxson. This is a resolution authorizing the acquisition of 51 replacement and 21 additional vehicles or equipment by various city departments. Your question or comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Within the packet for this item, a lot of this, there's several service vehicles, and I know those are kind of special procurements, but one item where we're getting, about $2.6 million to one company for a variety of vehicles. Going through each of those items, there's a lot of things like crew cabs, 4x4s, all of those things. And if I'm skipping over to the departments, and I don't for a second pretend to know what each department member is utilizing each vehicle for, but if I'm to understand this right, most of these are replacements outright.
Correct.
So looking at the individual costs for each of these, I would think if we're going to get, I think I said the number was 42 vehicles, about 2.6 million from one purveyor. I would think, one, that we're getting a little bit of, we should get a little bit of a below market type cut. I realize that our vehicles probably need one type of wrap, one type of logo, that type of thing. But if I'm looking at these prices, I don't see us getting any kind of, any kind of consideration within this very large bundle of vehicles. And so, at 2.6 million to one person, it kind of needs to make a little more sense to me. So if you could flesh that out.
Oh, sure. Some of you don't know me. I'm Russell Dean. I am the Assistant Director for Asset Management in charge of fleet. To my right is the Director of Asset Management, Juan Rivera. He's new to the city. To answer your question directly, so we use a co-op type procurement process where we go out to a co-op who's been vetted through the co-op, or co-op vendor, excuse me, vetted through the co-op in order for us to get the lowest possible price. What you're seeing there represented is the lowest possible price we can get through that co-op and even through a bid process which is detailed in the memo. So we use that co-op to get the best price we can get for those vehicles. And in some cases those are pipeline style vehicles. So that with the upbidding and the price of the vehicle, that is the lowest price we can get. And we are very confident in the fact that we resourced those vehicles in order to get the price we need.
So I don't sell cars. I've never sold cars. But when I search, as if I was someone trying to purchase, let's say, an F-150 crew cab 4x4.
Yes, ma'am.
The prices from a number of sources
correct
are much lower than these. Now, you have several that are in the same category, and I realize purchasing 42 vehicles is a lot different from purchasing one, but it's still got to make a little more sense to me.
You also have to look at what we're doing with those vehicles, what upbidding is required. So we're not just buying a vehicle off a lot that you can get like online. We don't need Bose speakers. We don't need leather seats, those type of things. We need vehicles that we can put into construction, for example. That we can have longevity in the marksmanship or the marksmanship of those, or craftsmanship of those vehicles. So when we look at those prices that you're seeing there, you're not just seeing a base model price. You're also seeing that upbidding that we require, be it generators, be it air compressors, be it lift gates, and special lighting, roll cages, things of that nature. All that's included into that price of that vehicle that you're seeing. So it's not just off the lot picking a vehicle. There's other stuff that goes into that consideration.
So we're putting roll bars and Maverick hybrids?
We're putting different types of upfitting, yes. It's not just I don't have in front of me what the actual, maybe I do, upfitting for that Maverick is, but no, we're not putting roll bars in Maverick hybrids. It may require a toolbox. It may require some type of a generator or something like that in that vehicle. It may require maybe even special tires and those type of things. All that's in our write-up or consideration when we send it out to the dealer who's going to give us those considerations before we can purchase.
Perhaps we can see some of those considerations when an item like this comes up, because there's really, I mean, even from some of the things you're saying, I just don't see where a $10,000 delta changes, let's take out a speaker and add a lining. I don't think that's to the tune of about $10,000.
So you're saying you found a Maverick online or something like that for $10,000 cheaper than what we're able to buy it for?
Your F-150s Cruise, the 4x4s, also the fact that they're 4x4s. Are we going that much off terrain with 10 water department trucks?
In this case, yes. For what they have to do to go out to service the lines, is to service our water treatment plant, and those vehicles are necessary to be 4x4, yes.
That's fair. Okay, Parks and Recs?
The same beach operations, you have to be in the sand. Also, our various parks department parks here require us to have 4x4 in some cases to access all the areas of the parks.
Okay.
Ma'am, if I may answer that too. If you look at the procurement process, it takes a lot longer from the moment that we are acquiring that vehicle through the bidding process. It takes a while for that vehicle to actually be handed over to us. So when you look at local vehicles, what you're seeing is the price for that vehicle that dealership is expecting to move within the next 2 weeks. We're looking at a process that takes 7 to 8 months in this procurement process. That's why you can't really look at an online vehicle and suggest that that's the vehicle that we should be purchasing at that price because of our procurement process.
So like I said, I realize we're purchasing 42 as opposed to 1, so I'm not suggesting to go online and purchase at that point, but I'm saying if we're going to approach a vendor, and this wasn't even a local vendor, this is a different city. If we're going to approach a vendor and, you know, we're coming to them as a municipality and, hey, we're trying to make, you know, a multi-million, $2 million purchase, but, you know, where are we at on that? If I know you're selling them out front, 42, 52,000, that's what you're selling them to the general consumer. I'm buying 42. What cut am I going to get on that? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't see that in here. And
so
maybe that's a question of needing the full breakdown, needing, you know what I'm saying? It's hard for me to sit here and say, let's buy a bunch of 50, 62,000 4x4 trucks.
Yes, ma'am. So we do have the full breakdown on an Excel spreadsheet and each vehicle and what they're outfitted with, and that price comes out to the upfitted price of each vehicle. So we do have a breakdown of each vehicle that I can share with you, and you can see the total vehicle, what's acquiring with the vehicle, the procurement process, and the equipment that's going to be put into each vehicle, and it ultimately breaks down the full price of why we're paying what we're paying for that vehicle. We are looking for turnkey vehicles upfitted for each department with the equipment that they need outfitted. For example, right now in asset management, we are replacing 2 F-150 trucks for 2 vans. And the reason for that is, although it is not a like-for-like vehicle, we are acquiring it to make sure that our electricians can lock up their equipment and secure their items that are in that vehicle. So although we are looking for vehicles to be upfitted to a specific specifications, that's why you see the price change.
Perhaps what would be a little bit easier to justify this would be to see that comparison. You know, this is maybe what they initially were offering, or this is maybe going rate, and because we're purchasing this large of an order, the procurement or the vendor has agreed to work with us here. This is the savings that our department is bringing to you to be the best stewards of this particular purchase. Because with this carpet information, I'm pulling this up. I mean, the price tag on the front is almost $11 million. 10.7, and like I said, I realize a lot of these are very unique pieces of machinery, so that's kind of why I went into something a little more common, just the trucks and those types of things. But that sort of information is what's going to be helpful, at least for myself, to say I'm standing with my city departments, because I can see in black and white that they went out there, here's how I justify this. They've got us this kind of a deal.
I'm going to jump in. Can you explain the buy board and how we use this system? Because that would address, I think.
Well, I am, not to interrupt you, I'm very familiar with the buy board and its process, but for this particular procurement, because...
Yeah, so I could just add to that, Mayor and Councilmember Paxton. So we did utilize a cooperative agreement, and for those who aren't familiar with it, it is when we go through a cooperative, those items through the cooperative are already bid out, and so we're compliant with the state rules, our own procurement policy, and so it's supposed to be an efficient process to where you take advantage of the lowest price that's already been bid out for you, and it should be the lowest price. So here in this procurement, we did go out to 8 local dealers, and the cooperative came in cheaper most of the time. So what we can do is provide you with that analysis that was done. It's not included in the agenda packet, but we do have that information, and we'll get you that information so you can show that there was a comparison and that savings that was achieved.
If you can include that in these types of items, because for me, if I just, I'm looking for the details, and if that's the most detailed document that I have, then of course I'm going to raise some more questions, because I don't see all this other included information.
Definitely understood. We'll look at how to add that.
Thank you.
Councilman Hernandez.
Councilmember.
Okay, thank you. This is probably more a question for Public Works, because in looking at the procurement, you have 21 additions, and 20 of the additional vehicles are Public Works. I want to have some understanding as to that, because as far as I know, we only have 2 paving crews in outside of the street sweepers, maybe you can help understand what exactly, are we adding a third crew? Do we have the people for that now? I mean, all the other ones are replacements.
Yeah, Ernie's here.
Okay, so I want to understand what's happening here, because this is a lot of equipment, and if we don't have the people to use them, what are we doing?
Yeah, Ernie's going to explain. Several of these were in the budget process, so Ernie, yeah.
Yes, sir. Ernie Delgarza, Director of Public Works. With me, Manuel Hernandez, Assistant Director of Streets, and then Jason Alvarez, Assistant Director of Stormwater. Yes, sir. So we have a couple pieces of equipment that we can explain, but just to rephrase your question, you're asking about how many paving crews we have as far as our staffing level is concerned?
Well, I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 F-150s, 6, 7. There's 7 F-150s that you're adding that are 4x4, 2 that are not, that are crew cab. In Public Works Stormwater is adding the street sweepers, but I mean, and then you have some the rollers, you have a track loader, flow boys, the paver. You have these equipment that's coming online. I mean, I'm assuming it's for a third paving crew, but are they going to?
No, sir. If you recall, during our budget initiative process, when we were doing the budget, we came to council, and this was part of that reconciliation to make whole a lot of the teams and the equipment from what had been there when I came to Public Works. You know, we also talked about it in our drive. Remember, I told you that we had a small paver and mini rollers that weren't good enough for some of the street work that we're doing, and you asked, well, why do we have them and what are they good for? And I said, really, if anything, parking lot work and maybe alleys. And so what Manuel did when he came on board is he started finding all the shortfalls in our operation, getting the right loaded flat wheel rollers, also getting the paver that we needed, and then also the spread aggregate spreader for under seals. So a lot of what you're seeing there is what makes the existing teams whole with the missing equipment, and then also adding what's needed for the NSOP or the non-structural overlay program. And then, you know, I'll get Manuel here to speak to the details here in a minute. But if you want, he can give you a breakdown specifically of what's going to be used where and what his strategy is for handling that. Would that help?
Okay. Are you fully manned in your 2 paving teams?
Yeah. So right now, we're about 19. What was our vacancy?
We're 18%.
18% vacant. Yeah, so we had so short answer is we're not 100% fully staffed, but we're staffed enough to where Manuel and his teams are able to mix and match technicians and foremen to get the job done. So right now, as we speak with our what we call the skin patch program and the RPP program, which are the council priorities, we're 5 miles in on the I think our goal is 9 miles. You're 5. How many for RPP?
We're 3.6 miles in RPP.
All right, so we're 3.6 miles in for RPP. Our goal is 9 miles, but we already have the 5 miles on skin patch. So we're already hitting close to the 9 miles for the fiscal year. And so what I'm trying to say is that we're making it happen with what we have when we get all of the equipment in to make all our shortfalls whole, which an example would be getting the right flat wheel roller that would help us get compaction on an asphalt mat. Before we were using light rollers, and so we weren't as efficient as we could be with the new equipment. So this new equipment pretty much fills in all the gaps for the whole program for streets altogether.
Okay. So what's the lead time on this? Are you going to get this right away, or is it like next year?
It's a year. It's about a year time.
It's about a year. So we're buying it now. We won't get it until next year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we've got some time before this will actually show some
right, and like I said, you know, Manuel and his team are making it happen. They made it happen last year with the shortfall. This makes us more efficient. So we're meeting our commitments to the RPP program and the skin patch program.
Okay, I'm good with the what you're talking about there, but please explain the 7 F-150s.
Right. You want to?
What was the addition for?
Manuel Hernandez, Assistant Director. So we have a shortfall in crew cabs to get people out there. people movers, and we had some new staff added, a superintendent, pavement asset manager. So a lot of times they're using dump trucks to take people to the job site, or or live bottom, right, just to get the crew out there. So there was just a shortfall in dividing that crew up. We have actually 4 paving teams right now. We have a long lane utility cut that's up on Upper Broadway, and we have 2 crews dedicated to RPP and NSOP.
Maybe you need a passer.
I have a 4th crew that's trying to do the non-structural overlay. So the small paver is too small to do. It only paves 6 foot wide, I think. So we need a paver that can actually go a full lane width. So something like Upper Broadway takes 4 passes when it could take 2 with the right size paver. The small paver can't even push the trucks. So it's just not enough horsepower. So we're making do with what we have, but if each team had its own paver, we'd be able to expedite production.
And do you have one of these pavers, what is it, AP 1000 paver? Do you already have one of those?
Yeah, so we just got one in December. From what I understand, that paver is ready to go in Austin. So once this is approved, it's possible we get that paver sooner. But the live bottom trucks and some of that other stuff might take longer to get manufactured.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Cantu.
How much was the prices in Corpus Christi versus what we have right now? Like, how much more were they?
So for the procurement process, I would have to lean over for those prices here. I wasn't here for that budget. But what I'm hearing from my team, sir, is through the procurement process, we're looking at a 5 to 10% savings when we buy in bulk through the TIPS, buy board, and Sourcewell co-op, sir.
So you say 5 to 10%? I have a friend in Houston has a Ford dealership, and he loves it when city comes and buys vehicles from them because city pays too much money for them. You know, I think we need to make sure we need to bid it out for sure. And me personally, I like to buy from Corpus Christi. You know, I know we have projects we do, and it might be a cheaper contractor, and we pick the expensive one because of experience. You know, buying from Corpus Christi, their sales tax stays here, their money stays with their employees and stuff. So, how much is the rollers you're buying?
The rollers, I have them right here, sir, the exact price for those rollers. So we have the pavers, so the pavers, that is a $628,000 purchase. The chip spreader is $476,000. And then for the other rollers, excuse me, bring down it. I have the exact roller on here. Right here. Give me 1 second, sir. I'm all broken down here. Approximately 628,000, sir.
600 what?
628,000, sir.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Paxton. Oh.
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of along the same lines as Councilman Hernandez's question, if we're replacing 51, according to this, 51 vehicles, and I haven't counted specifically on that list of the trucks that I was referencing earlier.
Yes, ma'am.
If we're receiving those in a year, what can you include in that list of stuff that you were going to send us also some information on what are we doing with the vehicles that are terming out? What's their status? I know we tend to retire vehicles at different scales, and sometimes they're retired to a point where their original purpose is no longer served, but another department can cross-utilize that. Yes, if that makes sense, because 51 outright replacements, that makes me presume we're using 51 pieces of equipment. So where are they going? Are we getting, you know, a secondary type of use out of that rather than just, all right, these are past their prime, let's lock them up and start the next one, just to continue to show that we're utilizing that to its absolute last point?
Yes, ma'am, that is absolutely correct. So those vehicles have been deemed out for disposition. So during our annual auction, those vehicles will be auctioned off. Vehicles that are in our lot that are deemed for disposition, that are no longer being used, any department can put in a memorandum for use, but they must understand that vehicle is not going to remain with the city, because during that year they will go off to auction and be sold off. But they can do temporary use agreements for that specific vehicle as it transitions into the auction.
Are we reutilizing them at all, or once they've come to the point where they can no longer maybe go into those difficult places, we're just sending them to auction?
Yes, ma'am, because you have to understand that when you get to the point where a vehicle has exceeded its service life, that specific vehicle, the maintenance costs on that vehicle, the safety of that vehicle is probably not up to the standard of which we want our employees to be driving in. What we try to do is once we identify that that vehicle has reached its service life, either due to maintenance costs or a 7-year, is what we use is every vehicle that we acquire has a 7-year lifespan, approximately 7 to 10 years. When it reaches that, we need to also take the data of how much it's costing us to maintain that vehicle on the road. So once we get to that point, we tend to put that vehicle out for disposition and get rid of it.
So kind of similarly, for instance, I had an agency that wanted to do exactly this, but on a much smaller scale. They needed to purchase a brand new truck. They had a truck that they would carry chiefs out. They would go, they would respond to an incident with executive type or leadership type personnel. It was past its years of prime use and service. And they, rather than sending it straight to auction, they were able to repurpose it for minor department use, for small calls, those types of things where they didn't have such intensive loads. It was more like a staff type transit. So rather than taking the vehicle completely off, it filled a smaller role where it was not so much a liability. That was kind of more my question. Are we getting that full use out of it?
Yes, ma'am. I absolutely understand it. And yes, those vehicles are available in case that we need to repurpose them for other things. But once they reach that age where the maintenance cost exceeds the purchase price of that vehicle, we want to go ahead and dispose of those vehicles. The good thing is that through the auction, we go ahead and replenish our VERF fund. So as we auction off these vehicles, we continue to replenish our vehicle and equipment replacement fund. So that's revenue bringing into the city.
Thank you. That would be helpful information to include also on those that we're deciding to move on from.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Please submit your vote. The motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item pulled was item number 8. This is a resolution authorizing a service agreement with Florida Floats, doing business, or replacement of 2 docks at the marina. Who pulled this item, council members? Councilmember Gunthu. Hold on a second. Okay, Councilmember, your question or comment, sir?
Question. Why are we using a Florida company for this?
Corpus Christi Marina Manager Jonathan Atwood. Well, they supplied the dock that was originally supplied in 2006.
Okay.
So this is replaced in kind, so we're going back to the original manufacturer and having it replaced exactly as it was. That's one of the main reasons. So that either they won the bid in 2006, which I assume was the case, or a decision was made to go with that company at the time.
In 2006, but presently, there's no company in Corpus Christi that could do this?
There is no company in Corpus Christi that builds docks, correct.
No. So they're coming from Florida to build the dock here in Corpus Christi?
Correct. And they are currently building the 5 docks that we are replacing in the marina right now.
Yeah, the 5 docks being 30% of all the docks and slips, right? How big is that project? 20
that
million?
was a $20 million project.
So they're doing $20 million of dock replacement today, and this is an add-on, and they'll bring the same material for these 2?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was just checking. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilman Vaughn.
Is there something, it's odd to me that 2006, that's a long time ago, and I would think you would have other companies in the state of Texas even that could do this. Is there something unique in this dock that only so many people do it?
Correct. So Bellingham Marine has been around for a number of years. They actually have space in Washington and in Florida, and they designed a very unique dock that is concrete, foam filled. They have really updated the materials over the years to provide materials that will stand up in our environment. And there's really not a dock manufacturer in Texas that can meet their requirements or the level that they are producing docks at.
Okay, I believe you, but that's just kind of surprising that nobody else can do it except these guys over there.
There are really not that many dock manufacturers across the U.S. or really worldwide.
Okay.
Really, there's only 2 in the U.S. that would meet our expectations. Miko Sullivan and Bellingham. Part of the docks in the marina are currently Miko Sullivan, and Bellingham's replacing 5 docks right now. And both those manufacturers supply docks worldwide.
You know more than I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Paxson.
Thank you. I think kind of like what Councilwoman Vaughn was saying, it flagged my attention when I saw there wasn't like options, and then to go into our packet and it said that this had 3 exemptions in the procurement process because of patented equipment that we couldn't find in another purveyor. So of course, went around kind of doing like a crash course on these docks. So are we saying that in our environment, where that dock is located, that we specifically need this type of floating dock? And is it because, from what I understand, to this purveyor, there's less give, and also if there needs to be maintenance, then we don't need to go with those tie lines that go through all the elements of the docks. That their technology is more securing on the exterior fixtures of it. I'm just trying to see why we chose this specific type over something that may be a little more affordable.
No, for sure, and I understand. We have some other docks in the marina right now that are held together with a lot of galvanized fasteners. They have external floats and things like that that are bolted on. Those fasteners fail in this high salt air environment. With the wind-blown salt that comes off the bay, we live in a very rough environment here in Corpus Christi. These docks are concrete. The foam is encased. They're basically one piece, and then they're held together by what's called a whaler, and that's that material that bolts on the outside. And this company continues to improve the way they manufacture these docks with things like composite fittings that will not rust or corrode in this environment, stainless fittings that will hold up in this environment, and we're really expecting to get about 50 years out of these docks. That's many of the reasons we went with this company to begin with, to replace the other 5 docks in the marina. They happen to have done this project back in 2006. Really, the main damage occurred during Hurricane Hannah. Otherwise, I think these docks would still be going strong. So replacing them with like kind, I think we should get another hopefully 40 to 50 years out of them with minimal issues. The docks that were replaced in 2008 with a different company that had those galvanized fasteners on the outside, we have spent a lot of time and labor and materials trying to make repairs to those docks to get them up to the 25-year life expectancy that we were originally told they would make.
So with these ones, they made it kind of clear it doesn't appear to be a whole lot of warranty coming from the provider. I think that they just have that level of confidence in their material. But they did stress and underline the importance on our team's side of that maintenance. So what you said earlier about these being installed in 2006, a 40, 50-year lifespan of a product, we're saying definitively that it was hurricane damage that shortened that?
It was hurricane damage and also an improvement on their materials. You know, when they installed them in 2006, they did not have the same materials in place that they have now. And so they were really on par with this industry standards of about 20, 25 years at that point in time without hurricane damage. They have since continued to improve those materials, and we will see those new materials in our new docks. And that's really why they're able to say 40 to 50-year life expectancy for these new
Well, I think these are going to be some really sharp-looking, high, modern items to add to our marina, which is really an asset to the community. So I look forward to hopefully seeing the rest of that marina invested in and brought up to that same level. And I know the potential's there, and we care for it. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councilman Roy.
I just have one question. When you have an organization like this coming out of Florida, what's the number of laborers that it's required or do they need in terms of building these docks? What's the average crew? Do you know?
Yeah, so they've had a team of about 5 or 6 on site assembling the docks that have currently been shipped in. So we currently have A and B dock in the water, mostly assembled. And that team comes in. Now, it does not include the crane crew that's currently being provided by Callan. For a small project like this, we won't need all that additional large crane equipment. So we're looking at the same guys that are currently on site, expect to be able to pull this off the truck and bolt it up for us.
Okay, I just wondered if they use any, you know, is this a type of project where they use local laborers or local companies as their subcontractors to help facilitate the installation?
I think in some projects they have, and the project of this size they won't need to. And
because it's a relatively small project.
Correct, and we also get the expertise. Even if they were to hire local labor, they would still send a team to oversee.
Yeah.
Because that's a big part of this company, is that the docks are assembled correctly with their expertise.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 8.
I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Please submit your vote. The motion carries. And the last item pulled was item number 9. This is a motion to award a construction contract to Camacho Demolition for the Morgan Elevated Storage Tank demolition. And who pulled this item? Councilman Cantu. Your question or comment, sir?
Just want to make sure this is the location, the old fire station, the fire station on Morgan, correct?
Correct.
And my understanding, $160,000 will be refunded back to the city of Corpus Christi from Rachel Foundation, right?
That's the agreement that we have with them.
So
there was some discussion over who would be responsible for the demolition. I think where we wound up is we would contract that out and they would reimburse us.
So it's signed, contract signed, everything's good, Peter?
We don't have a signed contract yet, Councilman, but we're working on it. We're working on the signed contract. I personally met with Mr. Eltide last week.
Okay.
So we have a verbal agreement, and we have to take care of one more piece of business, and then the contract will be signed.
So pretty much it's a done deal?
I would say it's a complete deal, Councilman. Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure.
We do appreciate them. That this is an added expense they're picking up for the city.
Yeah.
And they, just for background, we swap properties with them. The current fire station number 3 will transfer to the Rochelle Foundation. The new location that Fire Station 3 is on, that was their property at one point. So it's an equal swap of equal value, and they're going to add to this this $160,000 demolition cost at their expense.
Okay, so they're paying the $160,000.
Right.
Are they going to keep the fire station?
They're going to, right now, the plan is for them to keep the fire station. Initially, it was to be demolished.
Correct.
But with some agreed upon deed restrictions that'll secure that area by the $12 million new fire station. They will keep it, and then they agreed to demolish they agreed to pay for the demolition of the tower.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Hernandez.
And I just want to add on top of that, the Rochelle Foundation doesn't ask for a lot of accolades or spotlight on them, but they do a lot of good for our community. They made this possibility by providing the property where the Morgan Baptist Church used to be for the new fire station, and they're adding value to this by covering the demolition of the old tower. So it's truly a great organization. They deserve much appreciation, even though they don't look for it. So I want to make sure that we provide that gratitude to them as an organization. Thank you.
I'd like to expound on that a little bit. It would have been a big challenge if we had to find a temporary location to operate out of. If we tried to build the new station at the site of the old station, we would have had to find a temporary location, and there would have been a lot of cost and disruption to that. So this was a great help.
Councilman Roy.
Only other question I have, and I think I understand, I know the answer to this, but I want to ask it, is that, is this current elevated storage tank, is it a safety hazard?
There are some structural deficiencies. That's why we want to go ahead and get this down.
Yeah. So I think, again, accolades to being able to team up on this project, because my understanding there is some safety concern there. And so at the end of the day, it's going to be a win-win for both. Thank you.
Peter, will that be coming to council in terms of that agreement, what it ends up looking like?
We haven't decided yet, Mayor. There's an option that it does not have to come to council. There's language in the current contract that council approved that allows us to modify it. However, we could bring it to council for full public disclosure, so it's to be determined.
Right.
Legally, we don't have to. Politically or otherwise, we could. So it's to be determined.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, as you're moving forward, the concern would be what that facility could become.
Right.
So
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
the concern I have, but we'll right.
As did we, right, as did we. So when I met with the Rochelle Foundation, we wanted to ensure, and that would happen through the deed restriction, that appropriate uses of the property that would be consistent with, or that wouldn't be incompatible with the nice brand new fire station is something we're striving for. But I must add that Mr. Altide himself is the one that volunteered some of the deed restrictions, so he'll be in agreement with what we're thinking, which is good.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please submit your vote.
Oh, my apologies. I thought I hit it. Thank you.
The motion carries. We'll move on to, we will move on to lunch. Okay, the council will go into executive session on item number 14 per Texas Government Code sections 551.071 and 551.072. And that will be the last item on the agenda. We will return shortly.
Okay, Mayor.
Okay, we're reconvening our meeting, and there being no further business, this meeting is now adjourned.